Have you ever heard the story of Galileo? The brilliant astronomer, put on trial by the church for daring to say the earth revolves around the sun. This single event has become the poster child for the supposed eternal war between science and religion. It's a powerful story, one that suggests faith and reason are mortal enemies. But is that the whole picture? Is the relationship between the church and science just one long history of conflict? Well, today we're going to dig a little deeper, and what we find might just surprise you. Let's be clear, the Galileo affair was a dark chapter. It was a complex mix of science, politics, and personality clashes. The scientific community itself was divided at the time, and Galileo's own, let's say, less than diplomatic approach didn't help. The church made a grave error, one that Pope John Paul II formally apologized for in 1992. He acknowledged that theologians of the day failed to distinguish between the literal interpretation of Scripture and the deeper truths it conveyed. It was a mistake, a big one. But to let this one event define centuries of interaction is like judging an entire movie by a single poorly shot scene. If we look beyond Galileo, we find a very different story. Did you know that the father of the Big Bang Theory was actually a Catholic priest? Georges Lemaître, a Belgian physicist and priest, first proposed in the 1920s that the universe began from a single primeval atom. At the time, many secular scientists found the idea too close to the biblical creation story. Even Einstein was initially skeptical. But Lemaître's mathematics were sound, and his theory laid the groundwork for our modern understanding of cosmology. So the Big Bang Theory, one of the cornerstones of modern science, was pioneered not in opposition to the church, but by a man of deep faith. And what about genetics? The father of modern genetics was Gregor Mendel, an Augustinian friar who conducted his groundbreaking experiments on pea plants in his monastery garden. His meticulous work uncovered the fundamental laws of heredity. His faith didn't hinder his science. It provided the environment, the time, and the intellectual discipline for him to carry out his revolutionary research. From Nicolaus Copernicus, a canon in the Church, who proposed the heliocentric model before Galileo, to countless Jesuit astronomers who have mapped the stars for centuries. The history is filled with clergy and lay Catholics who are leading scientists. The Church actually founded and funded many of Europe's first universities, which became the birthplaces of the scientific revolution. These were centers of learning where theology, philosophy, and the natural sciences were studied side by side, seen not as competitors, but as complementary paths to understanding reality. Okay, so let's talk about the other big one, evolution. This is often presented as the ultimate battleground. Darwin publishes On the Origin of Species, and the church immediately declares war, right? Well, not exactly. The reaction was much more complex and varied. While some religious figures were certainly hostile, the Catholic Church itself never issued a blanket condemnation of the theory of evolution. In fact, its position has, well, evolved over time. As early as 1950, in an encyclical called Humani Generis, Pope Pius XII stated that there was no intrinsic conflict between evolution and Catholic faith, as long as it was understood that the human soul is immediately created by God, he was essentially opening the door for dialogue. He said Catholics could investigate the theory of evolution for the development of the human body from pre-existing living matter, but the spiritual soul was a different matter, a direct act of God. This position was strengthened by subsequent popes. Pope John Paul II, in a 1996 address to the Pontifical Academy of Sciences, went even further. He said that new knowledge leads us to recognize that the theory of evolution is more than a hypothesis. He acknowledged the overwhelming evidence from various scientific fields and celebrated the work of scientists. Pope Benedict XVI and Pope Francis have echoed this, affirming that evolution in nature is not inconsistent with the notion of creation. Pope Francis put it quite memorably. He said God is not a magician with a magic wand. The Big Bang and evolution, he argues, are the natural mechanisms through which God's creative plan unfolds. So, the official Catholic position today is not one of conflict. It embraces scientific discovery. The Church teaches that faith and reason are like two wings on which the human spirit rises to the contemplation of truth. They ask different questions. Science asks, how? How did the universe begin? How did life develop? It explores the physical processes, the mechanisms of the natural world. Faith, on the other hand, asks, why? Why is there a universe at all? What is our purpose within it? It explores questions of meaning, value, and ultimate reality. Think of it like this. Science can describe every single note in a beautiful symphony, analyzing its frequency, duration, and timbre. It can explain the physics of how the sound waves travel to your ear. But it can't explain why the music moves you to tears. It can't tell you what the composer was trying to express about love, loss, or joy. For that, you need a different kind of understanding, one that deals with meaning and purpose. The Church argues that science and faith provide these two different, but equally necessary, levels of explanation. Today, the Vatican actively promotes scientific research. The Pontifical Academy of Sciences is one of the most prestigious international scientific academies. Its members include Nobel laureates and leading scientists from around the world, regardless of their religious beliefs. They meet to discuss cutting-edge topics like cosmology, genetics, and climate change. The Vatican Observatory, with its facilities in Italy and Arizona, is one of the oldest astronomical research institutions in the world. Its Jesuit scientists are at the forefront of astronomical research, studying everything from distant galaxies to near-Earth asteroids. So, is the relationship between science and the Church one of conflict or dialogue? While the Galileo affair looms large in the popular imagination, the broader historical and contemporary evidence points overwhelmingly toward dialogue. The narrative of constant warfare is a simplification, a myth that ignores centuries of mutual enrichment and shared curiosity. From Mendel's peas to Lemaitre's Big Bang, faith has often been the engine, not the brake, for scientific discovery. The Catholic Church today sees science not as a threat, but as a gift that helps us appreciate the complexity and wonder of creation. It's a partnership where one explores the how and the other contemplates the why, both striving to understand the incredible universe we inhabit. The story is far richer and more collaborative than we're often led to believe. Thanks so much for watching. If you found this perspective interesting, please hit that like button and consider subscribing for more deep dives into history, science, and culture. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. See you next time